You count off. Three, two, one.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's ILBI Talks. This week we have Jonathan Lombardo, principal trombone player of the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra, a position that he's held since 2005, joining us. Jonathan has also played with Boston, Baltimore, Detroit, Cincinnati, Rochester, San Antonio, Sarasota. He went to Juilliard. He's played in Aspen. He's played in Music Academy of the West, Hot Springs Music Festival, American Institute of Music in Graz, Austria, and its Spoleto Music Festival in Italy. And I'm really thrilled to bring Jonathan on board because, like with a couple of weeks ago, we brought Tom Riccobono on board, and this is another one of those moments for me where it's like this whole teaching and being a student and then getting into professional life comes full circle because I first met Jonathan a couple of years ago up at Interlochen, where I was a TA for the Lombardo Institute. And I guess getting right into the the gist of this interview, I kind of wanted to start with offering you an opportunity to maybe define Jonathan Lombardo for people that may not know you. Maybe they're listening and finding out about you for the first time today. Um, Anybody can look at a bio and see like, yeah, okay, you know what you're doing, but what about yourself do you usually tell students about your own upbringing, your past, and what you look for as a musician in your career?
Oh, well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm flattered to be here, and I think it's a great thing you guys are doing. So, thank you. That's a pretty good question to start out with. I think that the number one thing that I like to think about, and I tell my students this too, is to be a yes person. I think, you when I look at my bio and stuff and all the things I've done, it looks like a list of like accomplishments, but I think it doesn't always say like all the things that I didn't get or I didn't do,
Mm-hmm.
and like all like kind of the constant process of doing the things and just sort of like saying yes to the opportunities that come your way and seeing where they go. And sometimes they go somewhere, and sometimes they don't. And so I think, with my music career like that, I didn't mean to start playing the trombone. I don't come from a musical family, but it actually all started back at the beginning when I got a random phone call from my band director, who would become my band director going into the sixth grade, because I signed up for a multi-elect program, and he was recruiting for summer band, which had already started. And he said, "We still have some spots for summer band, and would you like to join?" It was just a recruiting ploy for my band director, right? Like that's what they call everybody on this thing. I'm not special or anything, but I just was like, sure, why not? I didn't realize that what that did was automatically register me in band for the whole year. Like I didn't, he didn't tell you that part of the pitch. It was like, you're not going to get to try all those five other things you thought you were going to get to try. You're going to be in band. So okay, and I got there, and he asked me what I want to play. I want to play the trumpet. I want to play the saxophone. Whatever. We have too many. We have too many. And so he's like, "Well, how about the trombone?" And I didn't know what a trombone was. And so he says, "Well, that's a trombone." He was a trombone player. I said, "Okay." I said, "Great. We don't have any trombones. So how about you play the baritone?" And I was like, "Well, what's that?" Like, he's like, "Oh, I'll go get one out of the back." So, uh, an hour later, my life's changed. I'm like, I got this smelly baritone like running around. I was like, "Yeah, I'll do this. This sounds cool." Like whatever. And I'm starting to play the baritone. And then 6 months later, I switched to the trombone, and I just kind of didn't really have any preconceived notion about it. Just kind of ran with it. And it's like, yeah, I'll play in band. I'll do this. I'll take lessons. And so that kind of went on to, I heard about Interlochen, and yeah, I'll do that. And um, even with different auditions I've taken and whatnot, is that I kind of, you get an opportunity and you go for it and you see where it goes. And I think whether I'm doing it with the trombone or any of my hobbies, I just try to see where opportunities go. So I guess that's the philosophy. Is it? Yeah, it's not so much a grand plan, but just sort of a, here's an opportunity, go for it.
Yeah. Um, I love the yes man kind of analogy where if you want to do this thing, you have to kind of free yourself to say yes to whatever comes in front of you. Um, were there any like moments or like things that stick out in those early years, maybe high school or right out of high school going into college, where you said yes to an opportunity that really stuck and helped you see a future for yourself as a trombone player and as a musician?
Well, geez, for me, I fell in love with it. So I totally clerical error changed my whole life, but I really took to it quickly. Like I really fell in love with it, and I like to practice a lot. And so, you know, I think like early listening to like Christian Lindbergh records, you know, back in the 90s, you could only have CDs. There was no Spotify. And I remember I would get my teacher, my private teacher at the time made me like a cassette tape. He burned me like a tape of like all these different Christian Lindbergh recordings, you know? And so I remember that kind of blowing my mind and just sort of really having a huge impact on me that, you know, in my head, I was like, I want to be a trombone soloist. That's what I'm going to do. I want to do what this guy does. Like, this is unbelievable. And, like, I don't know if this answers your question, but it definitely was a big, you know, inspirational thing for me to get to do that. I also remember one time I got an opportunity I made a tape for an Eastern trombone. I guess what's the American Trombone Workshop now. Back then it was the Eastern Trombone Workshop, to one of their competitions, and I made the semifinal round. And this was back when I was in middle school for like the young category. We played the Galliard suite, the first one, you know. And I remember practicing it and thinking that sounds pretty good. And I went and I did the competition, and you know, whatever, didn't win, but Nitsan Horowitz had a recital that night, you know, and I think he was pretty new in Philadelphia at that time. He had just left the New York Philharmonic, and so he was pretty young, and he played the Galliard, and I remember sitting here like that doesn't sound like mine. Like mine, like that sounds like way better. Like I didn't even, like, how did he come up with half of that? Like he was doing ornamentation and stuff, and I'm just ba 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 ba, right? And he's just all over it, and I just remember like realizing that the world was a lot bigger than my band room. You know. And so I kind of sought out Interlochen after that as like the next step, you know, feeling like, okay, it's more out here than just what's happening right here, and had support to do so. So, but you know, funny, my job is a big yes moment for me, because I was, believe it or not, I was on the fence about taking the audition here. I was in my master's degree at Juilliard, and so I was like right at the end of my first year, and you know, I was like, I almost had my master's, and I was thinking like, oh, maybe it'd be good to like finish this out, and this audition came up, and I wasn't, you know, depending on the day you talked to me, I wasn't sure if I was going to take this Buffalo Philharmonic audition, you know. And I remember, you know, that, you know, Joe like saw me in the lobby at the time, and you know, he always knew exactly what each of us were up to, and he kind of came up to me and was like, are you going to take this audition? And you know, I knew what he wanted me to say, so I was like, yeah, I'm going to take this audition. He goes, good, because I have a good feeling about this for you. And like, you know, when he said that, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take this audition. I don't know. So, and you know, talk about fate, but it was like, yeah, and it worked out. And so like my whole life was changed by that moment of like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do this, you know. Weird.
I want to touch upon kind of some of the earlier stuff you were referring to before we get into some orchestral business.
Sure.
I'm very picky about how I phrase things like this, but I'm a firm believer that there's a difference in playing a solo and being a soloist. Could you talk a little bit about the things that attracted you to solo playing, things that you feel you maybe search for when you're hearing your students or when you're practicing, things that you might feel are key aspects of your soloistic playing?
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, I think when you just can kind of really not be afraid to expose yourself. And, I say that, people are going to walk away. They're going to love what I do, or they're going to hate what I do. And I'm okay with that, but I don't want anyone to walk away kind of being like, okay, that was, it was fine. It was okay. I think you kind of, don't be afraid to leave it all out there. Another word for that would be, I like to use it with my students, is like, star quality. I don't know. You know it when you see it, like it's kind of hard to put on there, but it's generally a little bit of a flamboyance in your performance. You speak with, and that, I think that comes with everything from the way that, you should walk out on stage, to the way that you feel when you're out there, to the way that you play, like whether, with your horn, dynamics, articulation, just emotion, the whole thing. And I think, but I think that's really just being committed to the music, and, not being afraid to put yourself out there and, be vulnerable, really, because it can go a couple of different ways sometimes when you do that, when you live on the edge. Yeah, I think that's it. You kind of, I like to live on the edge a little bit when I perform. I think maybe just in general, and that's okay. But I think that's where something exciting can really happen.
Do you feel? I know you just said that when when you're in a hall and someone comes out, it's like very clear whether or not that person is going to make an impression on you, whether that be positive or negative in terms of their extroversion or vulnerability. I see it both ways. Do you feel there are ways to practice being a soloist? Do you feel like a lot of students, I feel, want that experience of being very soloistic, but I feel like the majority of students go about that by learning solos, not by learning how to be a soloist.
Yeah, well, I think you got to like this. I think anybody can probably learn to do anything. I think certain types of personalities are more drawn to certain things, like some, and I think that some personalities, a little bit more extroverted, like the spotlight. You want like the attention a little bit, and I think that maybe for those people, when they walk into a room or whatever, there might be a jokester or a prankster, or maybe a little too loud, like that, those kind of things. I think those kind of lend themselves to enjoying the moment on stage by yourself, and willing to do that, in a very public way. I think with students who I have one student in particular I think of that's a very good player, that we talk about this a lot, because this person has a real like quiet confidence to them, and is and has a lot of ability, and a lot of but I constantly keep pushing him. I was like, that quiet confidence is something that is perfect for you to survive in this world, like to get better, to go to the next, to navigate all the different egos of the business. Like, it's perfect. And I was like, but when you get on stage, you kind of you got to become a little bit more of a diva and make it all about you. And I was like, because that's what everybody here wants to see. And so, we kind of work on, developing that. And I think, you do that by doing it. It's like mock auditions for orchestral playing. It's like, how do you get good at doing that? It's a muscle you got to work, I imagine, but it can be developed.
Speaking more specifically to your experience as a soloist, I know you've done lots of concerto concerto performances with orchestra. If I remember correctly, you were involved either in the commission or the premiere of the Wazen Concerto for three trombones?
Yeah, both.
Both, okay. Could you speak to what you, I guess, maybe learned the first time you stepped in front of an orchestra to play? Or I guess in a better way, what advice would you give yourself on that first time, if you could go back?
Well, the first time I ever played with an orchestra was back at Interlochen. Actually, way back in I think I was 15. Like I won the concerto competition. I mean, we're going back a long time now. But and so I always really liked it, to be honest. I think that I've always enjoyed the stage. I've always enjoyed playing the instrument and like in doing that. Like, I've always felt really comfortable in that role. That's not to say that I don't get nervous or feel that. I mean, I feel all the natural feelings that anybody feels. But I guess going back to when I was younger, I would maybe tell myself to really, when you're younger and you do those things, I think you don't really realize the arc of, or how often or how not often those opportunities are going to come around. So, to really soak up every little moment of it and not like take any of it for granted. Um, but yeah, I just always really liked it. I did all those I did a lot of competitions when I was young. They were a way to just have goals and keep practicing. And and then, I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily say anything other than just like cherish each opportunity, because like for a trombone player, they do not come around a lot. you know.
I mean, at least they come around a little bit more often than for tuba or euphonium, so you got that going for you.
Okay, yeah.
Do you feel like it's, let's say you're playing Mahler 3 with the orchestra versus playing some concerto in front of it. Do you feel that your role is, other than the musical role being different, obviously, do you feel like you have to prepare yourself in different ways for those kinds of performances, or are they more or less similar?
No, I think they're really, I mean, I think, it's like Hamlet when you get that Mahler 3 thing, that comes around. That's another one that doesn't come around very often, at least for us. And I think you definitely have to, it's all about you. It's not not an often a moment that happens. I mean, I think with something like that Mahler excerpt, you have to paint within certain confines of what Mahler has on the page. And then, you have the music director involved too. Sometimes they have ideas on what they want. But as far as the extroverted nature of the, like, that actually might be more scary than doing a concerto, because it's really weird to play that big. If you think about what's going on in the rest of the orchestra, like how sparse it is, and here you are just like, honking on these A's and just kind of going to town. Normally the wind players would look back and give you like bad look. It's like it's easier to play it in an audition in a way than it is in the orchestra, just because it's like 100 people sitting there and you're the only one making a lot of sound. But so you have to get comfortable with that and be like, yeah, this is it. I've been waiting my whole life to do this right now. So you're just all going to listen to me. I'm going to play right in your ear.
Talking about the roles you play, can you talk a little bit about what you feel is special or unique about your orchestra, and then what you feel makes you a great part of that orchestra? What makes you the ideal principal trombone?
Well, okay, I'm going to start with saying that we are all replaceable. Okay, I totally know
Interview's
that.
over.
No. That I wanna say that I mean, I'm a professional, and I take pride in my job, and I'm good at my job, but I'm not a fool any day to not think that I'm not also lucky to have my job, and that there's at least like, I mean, I think I'm just gonna say 50, but there's probably like 50,000 other young men and women out there that would love my job and probably, just do as good a job, as I would, or better. And so, I don't know if I can answer that part of the question, but I think what makes, the Buffalo Philharmonic, pretty unique, is kind of our diversity in our repertoire. And because we play, I mean, all the big clavier. We've done Mahler, we've done all the Mahler symphonies, we do the Bruckners, we do like a lot of your big standard stuff, but then we'll do that one week, and then we'll do like a concert, or like a week where we'll have like maybe a couple education programs, a pops concert, and a rock concert, like kind of just like a whole bunch of different repertoire. And we do a lot of recording. I think our music director, I think that's another thing that this orchestra, believe it or not, if you go on the Naxos library and you look at the amount of recordings we've done, I mean, I think I've done like 50 recordings or something since I've been here, of a lot of different repertoire and some big moments like the whole Respighi trilogy. Also, you know, some Strauss to Frauenschatten, as well as yeah, just, I mean, you know, and then a whole bunch of stuff that maybe has never been recorded before, but you know, you get these really cool opportunities with that, to kind of lay something down, like this T-Berg Symphony No. 3 that we recorded a long time ago. Has these great low brass parts, and sort of I get text messages sometimes like, oh, I heard this T-Berg and oh, it sounds amazing, and you know, so you know, so I think we're like the only recording or like one of two out there of that, and so that's pretty unique to have that large a footprint, I think. We've also gotten to tour, you know, a lot. We you know, some internationally and a lot of domestically, so that's pretty cool. But you know, just the diversity in repertoire, I think, is something that makes that this particular group, you know, of our size. You know, I mean, you'd expect some of that with a lot of what I said. It's like you think of like really large organizations like the Boston Symphony and New York Philharmonic. You say, well, yeah, of course you do that stuff. But I think of our size ensemble that, like, you know, it's extremely rare. You know, I think we do things that a lot of our peers like don't do in that regard, and I feel fortunate to be a part of that.
Amazing. I want to talk a little bit and pivot about your teaching career. And talking, you know, we were talking a little bit before we started the interview about the full circle nature of going through school and then ending up working, playing for greats, and then working with alongside greats, and then you know, a decade or so, and it just keeps going, and then all of a sudden you're on the end of that kind of circle. Have you noticed in your years at Fredonia College so far, like what have you noticed as far as what your students are coming in thinking about and inspired by? What do you find that helps them, I guess, helps the path click for them as they're traversing their degrees? I guess what challenges do you think that most students face that you tend to attack first as a teacher?
Well, you know, every student is different. I know that sounds like maybe an evasive answer, but you know, I think, you know, some students respond well to the stick and others the carrot. And you've got to kind of diagnose pretty quick which one they are. And then you kind of have to meet, at least for me, I have a wide, you know, I teach a lot of education majors, some performance majors, and then I also teach like some music therapists, people like, so, you know, everybody's goals are different. Like my studio is not like, you know, just everybody's there to like try to get a job and do that. Like this one size fits all, like, hey, we're going to do that. Like they all come in with very different life goals in the end with how their instrument fits into that, but they all want to be the best player that they can be, you know? And so that, you know, I think you kind of have to be receptive to listening to that, I think, and seeing what it is they want to do, also while kind of supplementing them with things that they need that they don't know they need. You know, like, you know, they don't know that they need scales, but they need scales. They need a lot of scales, you know? Yeah, and things like that. But, you know, it's like, I know you want to play the W, but you gotta play scales first. You know, and yeah, so it's really, I've been teaching there for about 4.5 years now, and you know, everybody's a little bit different, you know, and so for me, yeah, I think just trying to figure out how somebody hears, you know, words, and then, you know, and then play for them a lot too. I think it's you know, sound modeling for my kids is it's really important that we play together. You know, we play duets or just like play like literally together, like their etude, like their blast pitch, because sometimes just like really helping them, you know, see my coordination, you know, I could talk about it or they could just see it, and then it kind of clicks, you know. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
One more evasive answer, and we're ending the interview. No,
okay, perfect.
yeah, I was about to say I'm hungry as well. So with college teaching, I find that that at some points when I'm going about my job as a college instructor, I'm thinking about things that stuck out to me in moments that where I've taught where I felt like something really worked, or I found like everyone gave a really interesting response. Do you feel like there's something that you do at Fredonia that's really in something that you're just always excited to do during the year? What has kind of been your go-to stamp on your students?
It's the trombone choir, actually. I you know, in a group like that, I can address a lot of things inside the trombone choir, um, that just are universal aspects of music making. And I feel like we get to do it for 2 hours a week, like, so one on Monday and one on Wednesday. So we actually get a pretty good amount of time to do this. And, you know, I can kind of get them to have an aha moment in that often, because, you know, all of a sudden, like, something just is, you know, we can discover how, you know, layers of music, like how that changed the depth of things, or how a release can really, you know, lead into this, how silence can be magical, or, you know, there's a lot of moments like that. And I can also, you know, I apply always in the trombone choir, I apply what we're talking about in lessons, you know, whether it's technique or sound or dynamic contrast. Like, there's usually some theme going on in the week, whether intentionally or just sort of by the ebb and flow of the semester. And for sure, in trombone choir, it presents itself. And I can be like, this is what I'm talking about right here. This is exactly how this applies, like what we're talking about, this right here, right in this piece of music, and right what we're doing. And I can see it on their faces. Then it goes from like some, you know, concept or something, some exercise that sort of seems like it exists on its own, to like, oh my God, a real working application of the scale that you've been making me play. You know, not to bring it back to scale, but it's like, you know, so for me, getting to do the trombone choir, I think is definitely, I think I can have the most impact with my students, you know, in there as a group, because I'm able to tie in what we talk about in the lessons right there and make it like really obvious for them.
Okay. Matt, I think, has a question here.
Oh, we've been doing really well with not speaking over each other, but that was close. that was close. We've got to keep the days since a Zoom awkward.
What?
So, oh no! Now the interview is actually,
Yeah,
not only is the
it.
interview over, we're actually going to go back to our caves and not come out for a little bit. One thing that I always find is that when I'm teaching, when I feel like I'm really in the zone, teaching or performing kind of any artistic version of myself, I'm always excited for what am I going to learn next? What is going to expand my scope? What's it can be musical, it can be just purely interest, or another element of academia. What's the next learning opportunity that you're excited about? What's the next topical thing that you're going towards?
For me?
Yeah. I mean, Akshat can answer it as well if you'd like.
Well, I mean, okay, I'm kind of into carpentry, and I'm trying to build a whole set of kitchen cabinets right now. And so I've done a lot of carpentry projects and stuff over the years, and we're going to redo our whole kitchen. And so I want to make arts and crafts inset door quarter sawn white oak cabinets. This is like a big thing for me. This is it's like a really difficult thing. So I'm online all the time, like watching videos and books, and I set up my shop. It's very much like a process that I would take to music, because like I have to set up my shop first. I have to get everything in place. So to come up with my plan, I have to do all these things before I'm even going to try to, you know, cut a piece, you know, or play a note for that matter. Like, I'm doing my research on the piece. I'm I'm studying like, other, like how other players have done it. I'm going through like this whole process of like what I do for trombone, for solo, or all the things I've done over the year, but I'm doing it right now in a different idiom, with carpentry. And I think it's cool. I really like it. And I think the visualization process of imagining how things fit together, and because just like with playing something, you have to start with the end in mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to start with like what you want it to sound like. You have to know like what you want it to look like first, and then you have to go backwards from that. Like, okay, that's what I want it to look like, but well, how's all that stuff fit together? Because if you just try to make it the way you think it is in your head, inevitably something's not going to fit because you forgot about like the understructure of the whole thing. And so it's you have to think 3D, and so I think that visualization kind of helps keep my brain, first of all, a little sharp, and then applies to playing music for sure, because it's the
Mm-hmm.
same process. So for me with that, it is definitely, I think that's like where I've been spending a lot of my time, learning new things. Music wise, it's just about, I think at this point for me, it's like trying to get as relaxed as possible all the time, like making sure that, I've taken this year to try and just be relaxed, have different projects, but not be like, just be dedicated to being relaxed about everything I do, and not like, one thing about playing all those concerts a year, and you guys know, is that it doesn't really matter how you feel. Sometimes you got to make it happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's not necessarily healthy for like a long term in playing, but it doesn't matter. You got to do what you got to do in the moment. But so for having this past year, it's been like, no, you're gonna be relaxed. Like that's gonna be the number one priority, and I think that has yielded a lot of fruits for me, and I've been able, to do that when I go back to the orchestra and whatnot. So that's been my goal recently on the trombone front.
Something I always like to ask full-time professional musicians is, what is your like work to practice ratio? Realistically,
Yeah.
middle of the season, how much time are you really getting to maintain, to practice, versus how much time are you actually applying on the instrument in a rehearsal or performance of like kind of environment?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I would say that when I first got here, I was too much. It's like, I'm gonna go play Brooklyn 4, but I'm gonna practice for like 4 hours first, like it's terrible, it's a terrible idea. I think, I mean, when you're young, I think younger, you get away with it more, but I think what I tell, I don't know if I tell my students this, I think I do, but for me right now, it's not so much. When I was taking auditions a lot, it was like, can I do this like really great, like 10 times in a row? Like I need to play Bolero like 10 times in a row, and I just need to do that. But now I need to sound my best like just once, but it's got to sound it got, like it's gotta, because it make, I don't get to play 10 times in a row in the orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta just do it the one time. And I think that what I'm talking about with that relaxation, and just with the way maintenance happens is in balance. If I'm playing a lot in the orchestra, like when we're doing an 8 or 9 service week, I'm not practicing that much. It's not a good idea, because what I really want is to be supple, and responsive when I'm at work, and something comes around. So, I always start every day with a warm up though. Like when I get to the hall, I'm always at the hall. I'm one of the first people at the hall all the time when we do work. And it takes me about 45 minutes. I have my little routine, and I do it. And I always do that every day, first thing. Like the same thing when I go to teach my students at Fredonia. Like if I start teaching at 9, I'm there by 8, and I do my thing. And then, I play some weeks I play a lot with them. Some weeks I don't play so much with them. It just kind of depends on what their needs are, and also what my needs are with the orchestra. But I find that like that beginning part of the day, and so I talk about my carpentry projects or house projects or like with all this quarantine time. I do the same thing here. Like I wake up, it's the first thing. It is my number one priority every day is to take care of that part of my business is my maintenance, and then whatever happens later in the day, it should be fine. But if I put it off later in the day, the maintenance it's not so good. Yeah.
What do you feel like has been the biggest change in your practice in the past, say, 5 years? What's been the biggest thing that you've retooled as far as how you approach your practice time?
Um, yeah, that's I've really spent a lot of time in the last few years, sort of, like just focusing on where I like to say like where the rubber meets the road, like where the air becomes sound in the instrument, and just kind of remembering where that is all the time. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
know, I think if you know where that is, at least I know that if I know where that is, that if I can trust that I can blow easy and play easy, then I've been doing this long enough that I don't necessarily need to practice every single thing, right? It's not so
Mm-hmm.
much can I play, like I said, can I do this 10 times in a row? Can I do it once at a really high level? I mean, and so if I'm fresh and feel good, then and I know what I can expect, like where the instrument's going to make the sound and what to do, then I can just kind of play and really have fun with it, which is where I want to be both in rehearsal and in concerts. I don't want to be thinking about the mechanics of things. I just want to be making music and having fun, and so my practicing has a lot to do with um just kind of, I guess you'd call them like air attacks, and just like where that sound begins to happen, and musical approaches to things. I kind of have gotten away from some of the more traditional things that work really well for a lot of people and have been great, and they worked really well for me for a long time. But as I've gotten older, I guess I'm like, like Clark studies and things have become really like helpful for me just to move around in a musical way. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's sort of what I do
Mm-hmm.
now, and very dynamic. So I might play like the same set of exercises every day, and like Clark's, like whatever, 2 and 3, whatever. But one might be articulated, one might be mezzo piano, one might be forte. I've been stressing a lot of scales with my students. I've kind of One thing I noticed as an orchestral trombone player, you can get stodgy. You get used to like laying these bricks of sound all the time, like wah, and it feels good. But then you end up kind of like this power lifter. Like, yeah, I can
Mm-hmm.
play chorales, and then I see something like, that moves maybe quasi double tongue, and it's like, oh, I'm a little stiff, and you don't want to be like that. So I've really gotten into a lot of scales, like in the arbors, where like glistening, but then like adding the tongue and just trying to like I kind of work on this with my students a lot. It's just, you know, if you can, I find that if you can blow easy and gliss quick and feel like it's all one note, then when you add the tongue, it's really pretty easy. But it's like getting that tongue. We all suffer from sixth grade. It's like, that tongue gets involved. Oh, we want to like choke the air or do something weird. So it's just getting that villain out of there and then adding it back when it's like, no, you can do it, but you can do it like this. And I feel like that's really, you know, if I know where that is, if I know how those two things meet, then then Bolero is not really a big deal. But if I'm not sure like where those two things meet, then like, I mean, anything's a big deal. The scariest thing in the world is like a 2-note solo, bump bump in Shostakovich. That's
Mm-hmm.
like, that's all. It's a bump bump, but you know, it's got to be bump bump. It can't be bump. So I don't know. That makes
No,
I
that
don't
makes
know.
total sense. And
Yeah.
just to go back to it, I think you said something really. You put it really simply, but it's a beautiful sentiment. It's when you're on the job, when you're on stage and playing, you just want to be there and having fun, right? You want to
Yeah.
just service the music, and I think a lot of people, especially with right now with what everybody's dealing with the pandemic over the last year, where a lot of people aren't getting an opportunity to go and perform and be reminded what that process can feel like. Um, it's really refreshing to hear that sentiment coming from someone that's been in a job now since 2005 and then has been doing
Sure.
all of these different things, playing 170 concerts a year regularly, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and if I'm being perfectly honest, it's not that like every single, like I have like some special moments that I can remember in my career, but there's also, they're not all fine. Sometimes, you have days where how you feel, inevitably affects your experience with what's going on. But I don't think, I think in the when it boils down to it, I still haven't worked a day in my life. Like, my bad day is still better than anybody else's like best day when I'm there. I feel grateful. I talk about that we're all a place, but like I genuinely feel grateful for the opportunity to do that. But it comes with its own set of stresses and challenges. And I think making a living with your body is definitely one of those. And I think one that a lot of brass play. I think a lot of musicians, especially coming up, like no one ever talks about that. No one ever talks about like, you're going to get older and things are going to change and you're not going to be able to do it the way that you've always done it necessarily. And you're going to have to get creative and you're going to have some oh shit moments, like, I don't know. Is this over? No, not maybe not. I don't know, but you're going to have to keep going. But no one, it's like being an athlete, you just, you're gonna and how you take care of yourself, like how much sleep you get, how hydrated you get, and you don't always have control over those situations. You have family, you have kids, you have travel, you've got coronavirus, you've got like all these things that externally can affect you, and so then how are you able to adjust and still perform at the level you need to? It for me, it has taken some serious like reinventing of myself, and I'm happy to say that because that's been I think I've come back stronger on the other side of things. But no one ever talks about it. It's like this ghost in the room that like, oh, like you just hear about it's like somebody and they disappear. It's like whatever happens to them and no one ever talks about it. Like oh yeah, don't worry about Timmy. Timmy just I don't know. I think he's like an accountant now or something. It's fine. And so I think that's the biggest stress of the job because it's like I love doing what I do, and I think I've learned to really cherish it because yeah, well, I mean, either like I said, you may not be able to do it for as long as you think you can do it, or maybe you'll be able to do it until forever. I don't know. And the older I get, that's what makes some of the people with like really great longevity. Not to like keep going back to like my old teacher Joe, but like the older I get, the more what I really admire about him is not what he did in the first like 25 years of his career, which was amazing. But it's like what he continues to do like now, if in like whatever he is in his 50s and stuff, because you guys are still young, but I mean, I'm only coming up on 40, but that's not an average trajectory for a brass player. It's to like that like until like you're like going into your 60s, and so it's other great players like in the past, like Bud Hearthset or even Jay Friedman, all these guys like Jay Friedman, unbelievable that he's been I don't know what I want to drink what he's been drinking because like that's unbelievable to be. I don't know. I don't even know. I think he's 80 now or 81. Like
he's
unbelievable.
It, yeah.
It's the green water during St. Patrick's Day.
I don't know,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you that kind of people say it in passing, but I think that people who really do it for a living, like put on the job, doing that many concerts, it's like that is astounding. That's the real secret there. Like if someone can dilute whatever that is, because how many changes they must have inevitably gone through, whether they know it or not. They have. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, kind of went off there.
Well, with our last remaining moments, we have this tradition here. It's kind of borrowed from a couple of friends from other groups that we have meetings with. We like to end each of our interviews by asking, what are you grateful for today?
Oh, I'm super grateful for a healthy daughter and my healthy wife, and for my own health, and that I have uh, all four of my daughter's grandparents living within. Well, two of them live literally right across the street from me, my parents, and then the other two live about 20 minutes down the road. And so my daughter's able to grow up with like, full. It's pretty rare these days, like kind of a full set of grandparents and parents like right here. So that's really great. I'm really thankful for that, and really thankful for the opportunities that I've had, that I continue to have with teaching and performing, and that are my board members, Buffalo Philharmonic, the board, and our music director, and our executive director, that through this challenging time they have stuck by us. You hear all these terrible stories on in the news, and we know what groups we're talking about, that some of the musicians have really been left out in the wind. And I'm grateful to say that has not been the case in my organization, that the board and the management has doubled down on their commitment to us. And, I'm just so thankful for that. I know that I'm really lucky for that personally. And so, yeah, that's a lot. I have a pretty long list. I could keep going. I'm a pretty lucky guy. I know that. So.
Amazing. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah.
What are you grateful for today?
I'm really grateful for the kind of feeling where you you see someone and they're excited to see you. I don't know why, but that's just been in my head a lot. I always try to make sure people know that I'm grateful for their presence, but sometimes it just hits you where you're in a rut, you're doing your thing. It seems like the grind, as a lot of us might feel at this point in the semester, and you go to work and you see one of your colleagues and they're just like, ray of sunshine. They embody what I try to display throughout my day. So I'm really thankful for my friends and colleagues and family who continue to inspire me to be excited for things.
What about you, Akshay? What are you thankful for?
I am grateful for good friends and good company. Over the weekend, I got to spend some time with friends I don't end up often seeing very often anymore, under the guise of an excuse of it was my roommate's birthday. So it's just like, all right, let's this is a good enough excuse to get some people together. And it was just, I don't know, it was just therapeutic. It was nice to have an excuse to celebrate together with close people that have gone through a lot together, and eat some delicious food, and share some libations, and just have a good time. It really fueled me for this week. I think, like Matt was saying, it's in the middle of the semester, and it does tend to. Sometimes it feels like we're dragging on a little bit, and so it's nice.
You have a little countdown. You count the weeks, like, right?
I want to share. I want to share a quick story about this grind. I've been editing my document for my DMA lecture recital for what seems like forever, and I've been trying to figure out how to get this table of figures, like the front matter, the stuff that's not the actual writing. I have been revising it so many times because it's not what it's supposed to look like, and I figured it out today. I figured out how to make the little periods go to the end of the page with the page number. I'm 26. This was my accomplishment today. Is I got the dots to do what I wanted. So that's where my grind's at. Not playing, not high notes, not fast things. It's little dots on paper.
Come on, Matthew. I'm gonna old dog trick. Ready? Just gotta get your students to do that, man. They know all that stuff. You just gotta say, I need this thing. I don't know it. Anyway, it's my iPad. I need that. Like, can you take care of that? And takes them.
I'm gonna start referring to it as.
I don't know anything about anything, but I tell you what. Just things happen. It's great. You just got to ask them. Like, nice.
I think if I start referring to things as the Facebook and the Google, they'll start taking my electronic responsibilities away from me. So I've got to, while I still can, I've got to cash in on the fact that I have to wear a mask for most of the time, and they can't see the youthful glow from my cherished smile.
Oh, it's all, they think it doesn't matter. I guarantee you, they just think you're 50 anyway. They don't know how old you are. They're just, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think he's 40 something. Yeah, promise.
I definitely have some students that think I'm way older than I am.
Oh,
It's
totally.
very hilarious.
No, they have no concept of time. It's great. It's beautiful, really. It's like everybody. It's like your mom and dad's age.
Hmm. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been a great conversation, just illuminating about orchestral life and soloist life, and how we navigate changes over a career. Any closing thoughts before I wrap us up fully?
No, it's been fun to talk. Just kind of openly with you guys. So I wish you all the best of success. And if you're ever in Buffalo, you know somebody, drink some beers.
Hmm. Well, for everybody watching, I hope you all have a great night. Stay in touch on our YouTube channel for more ILBI Talks content. We have an interview every Monday. All interviews are archived on our YouTube channel, and so if you missed one, you can always watch it again. And otherwise, have a great week, and we will see you all soon.